So, in December of 2013, the trial of Robert Martin Gumbura started at the High Court. Part of his defense was that he was actually in relationships with these women and he was planning on marrying them. So, whatever that had happened between him and the women was totally consensual. There was no rape to even talk about. And being a polygamist, to him, there was nothing wrong with him having sex-enhancing tablets that he was found in possession of, because he said, being a polygamist, he needed them in order to be able to satisfy his 11 wives, and he was still counting. Hello, good people. Welcome to another edition or another episode of Real Crimes with me. I am so sorry my voice sounds terrible because I've got a terrible flu. So yeah, my voice sounds really bad. I honestly hope I am clear. I honestly hope that you're going to be able to hear me clearly. So in today's episode, like I always say, we are talking about crimes that have happened in Zimbabwe, outside Zimbabwe, anywhere in the world where Africans are thriving. So today we are going back to the motherland, Zimbabwe, and we are going to talk about a very controversial figure. I will go back to my series about abductions. The reason I have sort of shelved that is because I am still gathering information on the people that I want to talk about. It takes a lot of reading and a lot of digging for one to be able to actually come up with these videos, especially for those issues, because you cannot just scrape on the surface. You need to go deeper. So yes, I will definitely go back to the series about abductions that have happened in our beautiful Zimbabwe. Okay, I haven't forgotten that one. So today let's go into something a bit lighter. We are going to talk about a very controversial figure in Zimbabwe, the late Robert Martin Gumbura, who was actually the founder and the pastor or prophet, I'm not sure, of a church that was called RMG standing for Robert Martin Gumbura. RMG, Independent End Time Message Church of Zimbabwe. That's a mouthful. That's like a whole paragraph. Okay, but it's none of my business. Yeah, it was the name that he chose for his ministry or for his church. Okay, so who was Martin Gumbura? What was he famous for? Mostly he was famous for having 11 wives. He was famous for having 30 kids. He was famous for being a pastor who was then turned into a convict. Yeah, because he died in prison while serving his jail time. Okay, who, other than those bad things, who exactly was Martin Gumbura? Martin Gumbura was a man who was born in Chinoy, Alaska mine, to a headmaster. He had 3 siblings. His father was Forbes Gumbura. He was a headmaster as well as a headman in his own village. So Martin was actually one of the 4 kids that Forbes had with his wife. And Martin grew up like a normal boy according to his cousins and according to some of his family members. He became a teacher at Regina Mundi Girls High in Gweru. How did that even happen? How did he end up being a rapist after, teaching girls? And we never had stories about him. Yeah, maybe by then he was still, yeah. So anyway, he was a one-stage teacher at Regina Mundi Girls High in Gweru, as well as Mambo High School in Gweru. And in 1978, he joined the End Time Message Church, which was and which is still being headed by Pastor Chitsinde. I want to believe that's his name. So he joined that church, and then he was baptized there. And even the pastor gave testimony during his trial that at one stage he was a minister. Gumbura was a minister in that church. In 1980, he decided to break away and start his own church, his own ministry, which was called the RMG, Independent End Time Messages Church of Zimbabwe. Okay, so after he started his own church, he became quite wealthy. His assets are said to have included a mansion in Marlborough. It is believed to have 25 bedrooms. I do not know. That is what is documented, that he actually had a 25-bedroom house in Marlborough, and it had a couple of back rooms, a lot of back rooms, and it was high-walled, so high you would think you were in a prison. And he also is said to have owned a fleet of cars, like beautiful cars, 20 to be exact, as well as a gold mine in his village. He had a gold mine. And it is said that during his time, the time that he was growing up, he was just an ordinary boy, and nobody ever suspected anything like he's going to be a prophet or anything of that sort. But anyway, his family members back in the village soon learned that he had become a prophet, he had started his own ministry, and they were okay with that. But here is the thing that shocked them. According to his cousin called Mande Tapera Gumbura, who is a headman in his village. Remember I said Gumbura's father, Forbes, was a village head, right? And then Monday took over when Forbes died. Monday Tapera Gumbura took over as the headman. Sabuk, rather, Sabuk. Yeah. So he was the Sabuk in Gumbura's village. But this is what surprised Monday. He says, first and foremost, they knew he only had 2 wives. They were actually shocked to learn that when they went to visit him at his house, they found all these women, and he said they were literally paraded in front of him, and he was being told that these are my new wives, this is so and so, so and so. But he says of all the wives, he only remembered 2, the first wife and the second wife. He didn't remember any of the rest because they were quickly whisked away before he could even recognize their names or their faces. So yeah, and then he said at one stage they actually believed that this thing of having so many wives was related to juju, because one, he never married anybody from the village. He would just marry these women from Harare, and 2, he never helped anybody in the family. He never did anything for family. The only thing that he did for his family was to buy a coffin when there was a funeral. He said that we could totally depend on him. It was a matter of a phone call, and he would definitely deliver the coffin. The other thing that made them think that he was doing juju things was because he never came to the mine. No matter what, he would always send his mine manager, the driver, to bring things and he would give them instructions, take the ore, go to this place, He was never coming to the place. He would never visit the village. If it's a funeral and he comes, he would just spend a couple of minutes and he would be gone. So they actually thought maybe it was related to juju. Rather than helping his own family, Robert Martin Gumbura said that he was helping a lot of villagers, people that actually converted to his church, people that joined his church in the ministry, whatever they mean, his ministry or his church. I don't know how to call it really. Maybe we should call it a church because it says church in Zimbabwe. So people that joined his church, they benefited a lot, more than his own family. So if you wanted to benefit from his sweat, you had to join his church. So he, according to his cousin, he took care of his family members, both in the village and in the city. They were well taken care of. And he was saying that that same church that led to his downfall was where he invested all his money. He never took care of family. So that's where they ended up thinking that, oh, this could be some juju happening there. But anyway, he also described, Monday described Martin as a very arrogant and very aggressive man and very proud. He said that each time he would call, he would not pick up the calls from the village. The only person who would pick up the calls would be his wife, and she would say he's not around. But he said it was just a trick. He never wanted to talk to people from the village. He would only talk to them when there was a funeral. When his wife says, oh, there is a funeral in the village and they need a coffin, that was the only time he'd actually come to the phone. Also, people from the village would go to see him at his house. Their wife would make sure they are well fed, but they would sit in his house from 8 a.m. until 1 p.m. The wives would be saying, oh, he's busy. And he would only see them maybe after 1 p.m. So now, after what came out about him having pornographic material, Monday says probably he was busy recording himself the whole time that people were waiting for him, you know. Yeah, so that's like basically Martin and how his cousin Monday described him. He said he was also very arrogant because he at one funeral addressed the mourners and said that he wanted to take over the headmanship because he said they shouldn't be having a poor headman like Monday who doesn't even own a pair of shoes. So he was well positioned to be their headman because he had a lot of money. He told mourners that. So from there, Monday said he vowed never to visit Martin's house, and he vowed that even if he had a lot of money at his disposal, he would not attend the trial when Gumbura was arrested because of that arrogance that he had shown during that funeral. Martin Gumbura. Anyway, in 2009, Robert Martin Gumbura was arrested. He was charged with raping 7 women from his church. Now, these women's ages were they were ranging from young women to middle-aged women, married women. And they all described that some of these things happened almost in a similar way. Like he would tell them that before you get married, you must come to my office, that is at his house. And then he would tell them that, you know what, you have to sleep with me before you have your white wedding, because every church member who's getting married is sleeping with me before they do it. It's the right thing to do, and it's an honor for you to actually be intimate with the man of God. It's an honor. It's going to bless your marriage with the fruit of the womb. It's going to bless your marriage with long life. So they actually believed it. But after all is said and done, when they started talking to each other and they realized they were being manipulated, they decided they needed to report him. Okay, some of them said they didn't agree, but he would force himself on them. Like one particular woman was 29. She said he started raping her when she was 17 until she got to the age of 29. Okay, why did these women not report? They said he would tell them that he would hand them over to the devil. Did you hear what I said? I said he would tell them that if they refused to be intimate with the man of God, he would hand them over to the devil. Actually believed that they were testimonies of people that had been handed over to the devil, and these people's lives had really gone bad. They had lost their jobs, they had lost their houses, their marriages had broken down, and their lives were just scattered. So they actually believed that he had the power to hand them over to the devil. So they would do anything and everything that he said. In his defense, however, he said, so in December of 2013, the trial of Robert Martin Gumbura started at the High Court. Part of his defense was that he was actually in relationships with these women and he was planning on marrying them. So whatever that had happened between him and the women was totally consensual. There was no rape to even talk about. And being a polygamist, to him, there was nothing wrong with him having sex-enhancing tablets that he was found in possession of, because he said, being a polygamist, he needed them in order to be able to satisfy his 11 wives, and he was still counting. And he actually went on to explain that he was being charged with raping his wife's young sister. He said that she was supposed to get married to him, but he later discovered that she was having another boyfriend and he decided to dump her, and then she wasn't happy with that, so she cried rape. Another woman is said to have been he had a lot of these incidences of women that were hoping to get married to him, and then he discovers that they are doing something, and then he dumps them, and then they cry rape. Also, he said it was his policy that he would not pay bride price for any woman. He would take her, live with her. After she conceives, then he would pay the bride price. Okay, so now you already have 30 kids, Pastor Gumbura, and you can only pay bride price when somebody is conceived. If they haven't conceived, you don't consider them a wife. What is that? And then you live with this woman like man and woman for years, and she doesn't conceive. And one day you wake up and say, oh, she's actually cheating, she's got a boyfriend, I just discovered that. And then you send her packing. Of course, people would be angry. Women would be mad at you. I mean, it's just my opinion. Women would feel used. So I wouldn't be surprised if indeed some of these women that cried rape were actually as a result of being broken by him. They decided they were going to cry rape. But obviously, for some of them, it was genuinely rape, because then out of the 7 counts, he was convicted of 4. So I want to believe, there were people that took their time to do the investigations, and there were people that took their time to look into the cases and realize that, okay, this was a case of bitterness, this was a case of an angry ex, and this was really a case of rape. One woman is actually said to have brought her torn underwear that she was wearing on the day that she was raped as evidence. But this was years later. So she kept it all those years, hoping one day she would use it against him. And she got a perfect opportunity to do it in court. And she used that. And of course, I want to believe she was one of those people that actually got him convicted. So during the trial of Martin Gumbura, a lot of things came to surface, including that his wives were really scared of him. It wasn't only the congregants that were scared of him because he would hand them over to the devil, but his own wives were scared of him. They were so scared of him that they would write a letter to request to go and watch the TV. So there was actually a letter that was brought before the court that showed one of his wives applying for permission to go to the lounge to go and watch TV. And then the prosecution put it out to him that he was scared, his wives were scared of him. What about the congregants? They were obviously more scared of him. And he said it was natural for him to have rules in his home. What's wrong with a man having rules in his home, including a rule that they should not go to watch TV without his permission? And he said also the reason he didn't want them to watch TV so much was because he wanted them to watch the videos of him preaching. That was his way of indoctrinating them, his way of sort of brainwashing them. So according to the comments that I saw, people's reaction, or rather reactions about the conviction and the sentence, most people actually thought he was guilty of more cases of rape than what he was charged with to start with, and more than what he was convicted of. Somebody was saying that he had done a lot of rape while he was still working in Gweru, some old mutual building. I don't know what he was doing there. And also even in his compound at Marlborough, it is said that a lot of rape cases happened there, and his wives were like part of it. They were actually assisting him to do these rape cases. However, you could tell from the comments that, okay, this is somebody who actually believes in his innocence. This is somebody who's probably from his church. There are people that were saying that no, he was just being framed. Like he had said in court that he was being framed by Chitsindi, because Chitsindi gave evidence and said that even in the 1980s, Gumbura had been reported at the church council that he was raping congregants, and they had done meetings with him, with the church council, to the extent that his church had actually been banned by the church council, Apostolic Church Council of Zimbabwe. They didn't recognize his church because he had been reported on several occasions for raping congregants. But nothing was ever brought before the courts. It was always being brought before the church council. And Chitsinde happened to be one of the members that are said to have done these hearings. So Gumbura says that Chitsinde is just a rival because he had taken, when he split from the church, when he started his own church, some members from Chitsinde's church had actually followed him. But Chitsinde said no, there was no way he could be jealous of Gumbura because he had more members than Gumbura. But yeah, like I said, the comment section is always wild, right? When such things happen. I've seen comments from 8 years back where people were actually saying he's very innocent. He was just framed by Chitsinde. And even all these cases of people reporting that he was raping them at their offices. It's not true. He was just taking care of orphans, and sometimes some people were just bitter exes who cried rape. I don't know how far true that is. What do you guys think? The interesting thing, when he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Because when they went to raid his house, when the police went to search his house, they also found him in possession of pornographic material. Now, there are two versions about this pornographic material. He says the pornographic material was not his. It was actually church members that had decided that they want to give their lives to Christ. They want to believe in the God of Martin Gumbura. So they were handing over their evil to him, the evil that they've been using, including pornographic material. Okay? I then heard also another version that says, no, actually, the pornographic material was actually part of what got him convicted, because in some of those videos, he was actually being intimate with some of these women. So that was kind of evidence. But I don't think he would record himself raping them. He probably recorded himself when it was like they were actually in it together. I don't think he would be so stupid as to record himself. I don't know, unless if it's some victory thing for him. I do not know. But yeah, apparently some of this pornographic material is what actually got him convicted. And also, some people say some of these women that cried rape were actually married women, and they were indeed having affairs with him. But their husbands found out about the affairs, and they decided they were going to cry rape. So I'm not even sure. But anyway, out of the 7, he was convicted of 4. So probably the other 3 were not so clear. Anyway, he was convicted and he was sentenced to 50 years, and 10 were suspended. So he was supposed to serve 40 years in prison. 40. And family days at Chikurubi Maximum Prison, his wives would come and visit him, as well as his children. Remember, he had 30 children, 11 wives, and mistresses here and there. These candidates that were going to be his wives at one stage. So they were obviously probably coming for family day. I don't even know, but I don't know if you guys heard that one of his wives gave birth while he was in prison. So there was a rumor that he was actually getting conjugal visits. He actually had conjugal visits arranged. I don't know if it's true, because I understand one of his wives gave birth while he was in prison, and it wasn't a big deal because, yeah, he was getting conjugal visits. Do we have those in Zim? Do we have them? So after being arrested in 2009 and his trial kicking off in 2013, the courts reached their verdicts in 2014. That's when he was sentenced. And then, according to his cousin, again, Mande Tapera Gumbura, he said that whatever that Martin was going through, it was because because he did not do a memorial for his father, and he did not allow him to do it either. He said that the late father's clothes were actually left in his hillside house, and one of his brothers was actually wearing the clothes, and rats had destroyed some of the clothes. And excuse me, he said the first time he heard that Martin Gumbura had been arrested, he just said, oh yeah, Forbes is turning in his grave. So yeah, it's time this young man faces the music. Actually, Tapera said he wanted to do a memorial for his uncle, but he couldn't do it because Martin, being the oldest son, he had said no. He had said it's evil, it's ungodly, we don't do those things, I'm a Christian. Atite manyaradzo, ati ite jojo, ati paradze hembe dzemufi, anybody can just wear them. There's no need for us to even gather and do these things. So Mande believes that that's actually the reason, because he didn't do the right thing by his father. So anyway, after he was sentenced, another cousin from the village said that he felt that the sentence was too harsh. He was hoping they would give him like 7 years with hard labor that would teach him wisdom. Okay, but Mande, on the other hand, said, well, by the time this man comes out of prison, you'll be 97. After serving the 40 years, you'll be 97, and we will all be dead. His wives will probably be dead. And he was actually, sad that Martin would not be able to buy him a coffin, because by the time he was going to die, Martin would still be in prison. So anyway, after being sentenced, Martin decided that he was going to appeal against the conviction and the sentence. His lawyers withdrew from his case without any reason, like no reason was published for their withdrawal, but they did withdraw from his case. So he actually found himself with new lawyers, or a new lawyer, Lovemore Maduku. Lovemore Maduku in the year 20 after the lawyers, his original lawyers had withdrawn, Lovemore Maduku took over. In 2015, there was a lady by the name Tendai Kanyani who came and actually reported Gumbura again for rape. She said she went to his house, and then his secretary told her to wait for him in his office. She said after she waited, he came in, locked the door. The secretary locked the door and removed the key from the key hole, and she left. And this girl was raped in the office, and then afterwards the secretary opened the door. So she said she couldn't report to the police because, again, she feared being handed over to the devil. But now, at this point, she was reporting because she didn't believe that it was true. Most of his victims, they all claimed that they had been brainwashed and they had actually been made to believe that he can hand over people to the devil and their lives will be scattered. So in 2020, Love Mamadou decided to help Gumbura with his appeal. Gumbura's sentence was slashed in half. Yes, honey. He ended up with 20 years. He was supposed to save 20 years. And then Love Mo had actually said after serving 5 years, they would probably then appeal again, maybe to get him released on some parole or something. I don't know. They would have to apply to the courts to have him finish off his sentence at home. Probably that's what they call parole, right? Yeah. So he was actually very hopeful. Unfortunately, COVID-19 came, and being in prison, and probably being somebody whose health was already compromised, because yeah, there were rumors of him having bad health. COVID-19 came and it took Gumbura's life. But Gumbura was actually very notorious while he was in prison. He is said to have organized a riot while he was in prison with some other hardcore criminals like Kima Tambanadzo and Lucky Mungu. They are said to have gathered prisoners and given them speech and drilled them and told them about how stupid they were, that they were allowing the government to give them poor food when they could actually, have a riot and protest and have their diet improved. This was taxpayers' money. They had no business giving them poor food. They were spending their relatives' money. So yeah, there was actually a riot at Chikurubi in 2015, and that resulted in Gumbura getting having another charge added to his charge sheet. So he was appearing in court concerning that, but I never found where the ruling was actually about that charge. Yeah, so anyway, in 2021, Martin Gumbura died of COVID-19 while he was at Chikurubi Maximum Prison. And his wife, the first wife, was actually appointed the executor of his estate, as much as there was a lot of fighting over his estate by his wives. Now I'm not even sure if the wives are all still staying in the mansion, and I'm not even sure if all those orphans that he was taking care of that were staying in his mansion, because some of these women that he said to have raped were actually people that were orphans that he was taking care of, sending them to universities, and then they would still come back to his house as that was their home. Like I said, it is said to be a mansion with 25 bedrooms and a lot of back rooms. So he was said to be housing a lot of people in that mansion during the time that he was not in prison. So I'm not sure what happened to all those orphans that he was taking care of, and I'm not sure what has happened to his children and his wives. But yeah, that is notorious Robert Martin Gumbura, the preacher that turned into a convicted sex offender. Yeah. And he died in prison. What a shameful death. Yeah. So I don't know what happens when somebody dies in prison. Do you collect their body to do the burial by yourselves, or are they buried by the state? And also considering that it was a COVID-19 case, but I think I saw photos somewhere of his burial, and his wives were all there, and the majority majority of the children were there. But I don't know what happens under normal circumstances. When somebody dies in prison, does the state contact family to come and collect the body, or does the state continue to take care of their person? I don't know. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. That's the story about Robert Martin Gumbura of the RMG Independent End Time Message Church in Zimbabwe. So what do you think? I have questions. What do you think? Were these women really raped by him, or were there some cases of angry exes? Do you think it's actually true that he raped these women, or was it all consensual? Or do you think also, is it true that he slept with all the girls before their white wedding ceremonies were done? Do you think it's also true that he had some juju happening in his life? That's why he was not going to his village. He was not taking part in helping family. He was only available when it's a funeral. Do you think Robert Martin Gumbura actually had juju? I don't know, guys. Comment down below what you think. I just think he was a preacher. But he was a dodgy preacher. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please do take care of yourselves. Do what you need to do to take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. And stay away from crime, because if you do crime, you are most likely to do the time. Stay blessed. Goodbye.